Welcome to another episode of the Better People podcast. I am Holly DePalma, and today my guest is Debbie Kemp, who is the Chief People Officer at Biz to Credit, an investment bank or credit loan bank in New York. Welcome. Thanks for joining us, Debbie.
It's great to be a part of this. And yes, Biz to Credit, just briefly, we provide lending to small businesses. So we're really focused on small business lending.
Got it. So tell me, you have a long, I don't mean long as in like long, but you have a career in all different industries, sort of investment banking, telecommunications. Looks like you're back in the financial services world. Tell me a little bit about that trajectory.
Yep, that's true. I did. I started off early in my career at Goldman. I was there for a bit, and I'd say that it gave me a really great grounding in financial services, and I was able to have different roles throughout my time there. I almost feel like, kind of my career there, 20 years is a bit. And it gave me really good insight from a business perspective as well. And I'd say, what I found through the time there is there was life after Goldman. And so then I was able to pursue different, I'd say gain additional specialties. So I have done a lot of M&A, so mergers and acquisitions. I'd say that's probably one of my superpowers, is really ensuring that there's ensuring the people aspect of those transactions are solid and people stay and are retained, and there's a return on investment in those deals. And then I think the other part of my career that I think I've really gravitated towards are growth companies. So companies that have, they may, be kind of beyond that startup phase, and they need to take it to that next level. And so going into those organizations and looking at a lot of the people piece of it, but I'd say almost all the operations side of that as well. Because sometimes, when we're startup mode, we're just trying to do everything. And so some of those processes are probably not as tight or buttoned up as they need to be. And so going in and looking at that. So I'd say kind of the back half of my career has been working on those with those type of organizations.
Yeah, interesting. When I was, sort of looking at your background, I mean, Goldman is a huge organization with just a plethora of resources and lots of, just organizational structure built in, right? Like there's a path for everything. And, the organization you're at now was 50 people before COVID started.
Yep, that's exactly true.
Yeah. Tell me, and it is not an easy thing for, people to adapt to those different kinds of environments, because the resources available and the role and responsibilities are so different. So talk to me a little bit about that transition.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I'll tell you, we're still in it. It's still, it is culturally very different, right? So, 50 people, and again, those 50 were in the US, and so now we're 150 in the US, and we've got about 400 to 500 in India. And our tech, that's mostly our developers, our engineers that we do have on our Biz to Credit, because we also have a platform that's our Biz to X platform. So I think of it as, kind of a sister company, but it's it's in our portfolio. Anyway, the change is, from that 50 is very different. So you don't really, again, from a leadership perspective, may know everyone like you knew in the beginning, and you're not involved in all of the hiring. There's still some, level of, of that, but you also need different processes and kind of different structure around that. So popping in an HRIS, which again, it doesn't need to be a scary thing, but it was still something different, right? How do I, and for the people, for the employees. And then the other thing that came along with kind of growing from 50 to 150 here in the States is a leadership team, right? So it's not, it's you still have your founders or co-founders, and they're very involved, but it's, that next kind of their leadership or our, I feel like my peers, right? The chief legal and chief financial and chief product and a chief risk officer and capital markets. And so when you add that in, then you start to get a little bit of an organizational structure to it too, right? And those are all, again, scary a bit for people who haven't had that. And even from a founder perspective, if they haven't had that before, it is a bit of a challenge to let go of it, right? I mean, it's when you've been responsible for everything, and yes, you've been there and done it. It's, you kind of need to hold people, your talent accountable, your managers accountable for some of that work.
So, yeah. So tell me about putting a leadership team in place. How was that? Did you promote from within? Tell me how you went about that.
Yeah, I would say some of it was done, a little bit was done before I joined. So our CFO and chief legal have been really part of the company from the get-go. And putting in a chief product and the chief risk I'd say that I've done this type of recruiting, throughout my career. I really love meeting people. And so it's nice to be able to understand the organization and the leaders, our founders, and what may work with them and what may not work with them. And so that is finding those profiles and making a few introductions to just get an idea of fit. And again, skills, skills are critical, but we're looking for, and I think what we've been able to hire are individuals who are kind of the great at what they do. I'd say the best at product. And that has brought so much growth alone in that area for our, for both our Biz to X platform and then our just really our core business. So to me, it's finding that fit, but we've also brought in that outside talent didn't grow up in this space. They may, like me, grew up at, in investment banking. So they have that outside experience, and they know, again, organizationally, and again, structurally, operationally, how things should work.
Talk to me about fit. So tell me what fit means to you and your organization.
Yeah, that's a really good. That's really good, because I still, when I meet people, I really do think fit matters. And so fit to me is how we work. There's a pace to our environment. There's a camaraderie in our environment. I would say our co-founders and rightfully have expectations of how they want the team to work, or their leaders to work, and that is just go. I mean, I'll say it's almost like go do and maybe ask for forgiveness later. In that way that, don't check in along, well, like all the time along the way, right? Through every step. But if you've got a question or you've got, something you wanted to, a thought about or an opinion about, absolutely engage them, right? That's I'd say, and finding that, I mean, to me, it is that fit for individuals that have been at another again, at an investment bank, whether it's Goldman or JP Morgan or what have you, we've all grown up in a certain environment and are culturally, a bit emboldened to that, right? And so you need individuals who are very confident in their skill, but can also, bring people along with them.
So, talk to me about development of talent. And you grew very rapidly. And I would assume that that put some stress on some of your sort of, everything you do when you grow that quickly.
Yeah, it does, but it's fun. It really is fun. And I think what it enables us to do in a lot of it's fairly, I mean, it's fairly fluid, in that way. And developing our employees, we have been, and again from I'd say in the last few years. So kind of as we started to grow, we bought into LinkedIn Learning, and there's different tools that we have utilized to really become more of a learning environment or culture. We're still, I mean, again, that's more aspirational than I want people to believe, because I think we have to be very intentional, and our employees have to feel it's great, like it's good to learn. And that's also kind of what, by the way, we're looking for now when we're out in market looking for a new underwriter, new sales. It's like, are they interested in learning? Right. Because part of, working here is we do have some processes, and we do, on the underwriting side, we do a little bit of everything. And so from a role perspective, and so that's not what we find in the market and the talent. So we want to make sure that they're getting developed. So we also have these micro learning sessions. We're actually going out with a kind of a training right now for our sales, anyone who's touching a customer. So a few different roles, and it's really focused on customer experience. So we're linking that with LinkedIn Learning, some micro learning, like through, Teams or WhatsApp. So there are little micro sessions, and then also some coaching sessions on calls, because we record calls. And so we have the opportunity to, get a sense of how how some of our employees are doing on those calls. And then we're going to do some coaching sessions. So again, we're very interested in I feel like evolving that experience with our customer. And one way to do that is through this, development piece. The other one thing that, that we're doing is we haven't really done a lot of career pathing, or kind of, how do I get to that next level? Because we're not, again, so big that we have a lot of levels. So I've had the team that works with me, because we're kind of small but mighty, create what they envision as a career path for just our decision science team. And they're fairly young, and there's a few different levels in there. So again, thinking, what would work for them. And then we'll take those learnings and look at that for, some of our other, like product, a couple of our other areas.
Yeah, we, often the discussion with, particularly Gen Z and the millennials is that they need to constantly be, what's next? Yep. And that can be challenging for smaller organizations when there isn't always a clear what's next. So, having their input on how you get there to the what's next must be a really positive experience for people.
It is. And we, again, just speaking with, about, I'll use the decision science, data science group. They are very interested in that what's next. And it isn't just about, funny enough, it's not just about a title, and it's not just about salary. It really is about the opportunity and what else can they learn. And of all of our, I'd say, as a group, or, a function, they're very interested in learning.
Yeah.
And having that mentorship, or someone like we lost their leader, and actually kind of two leaders in that group around, the same 60-day period, and all good because they'd been with us forever. But I think it gave me an opportunity to really spend time with them and understand what was important and what were they getting from their, direct manager, that was important for me to know as I went out and started looking for somebody new, and even in the interim, had them, work with a different leader, and in this situation, I actually had them reporting into product to understand how, again, what was important for them. And they were part of it. They're still very actively involved in their development, right?
Mm-hmm.
And who they want to work with and where they want to grow, and not in the demanding way, but more about, here's what I've been thinking, or, hey, can we have a conversation about, and I have to tell you, it is so refreshing because it's not this nudgy piece, right? It's more hey, I really, I was thinking about, and I just wicked smart because they're really, thinking about the business and the reporting that they're doing, the modeling that they're doing. And it's impactful for us that it's nice to have an engaged, group and conversations. Like,
Sure.
I don't have to go out and have a focus group. They just come in,
What do you do? So have you done any engagement surveys or any kind of work to keep that pulse, or is it mostly organic?
Yeah, well, it's a mix, right? Before I joined, they did a couple of engagement surveys, fine. But what I found is once we implemented an HRIS that had this community component to it, and we do a bit more communications, we have this really great communication platform that we've engaged, Change Engine. So we're doing a lot more communication, not just from the people team, right? But, celebrating holidays and really getting the pulse of the organization. We did a benefit survey, a couple of weeks ago. We'll do a survey on kind of other pieces and get a sense. And we have an ongoing Net Promoter Score as part of a part of that community. So we're getting pretty good input. And I think, again, it's enabled us to tweak what we do or how involved our employees in on our, in kind of our activities, and building that culture that they want to be a part of.
So what is your business's largest challenge, and how do you, support that?
Oh man. I think the economy, I really do think the biggest challenge right now for us as a small business lender is, has been a lot what's going on with the banks and the commercial banks and the regional banks. And in some ways that's been good for us from a business perspective. But I think that the greatest challenge is that a lot of our processes and our CRM that we use as homegrown is really automating more of that. So it's this digital transformation that needs to take place or is taking place. And so we use the word unlocking our growth potential by, doing some things, having our customer experiencing in a bit more our customers experience in a bit more automated way. But that also then is changing how our underwriters and our case managers work. And so that challenge is great because they may know pieces of what's going on. And I find myself going, okay, I was just right prior to this call focused on, okay, what's the communication for this test group for this next initiative? And how do we communicate out to everybody? So I'd say communication is a huge challenge so that they also know what we're doing, not just the test group, right? And so that's a large challenge outside of everything else that's going in the economy, is just communicating in a way that our employees feel a part of what we're doing, right? And not being spoken to, but actually understand where we are. So things we weren't doing, I'll just tell you, we weren't doing town halls. There's a lot we weren't doing. And our email blasts were a little bit wonky. That's why we're engaging like Change In. And we just really automated a lot more of this. So if somebody's anniversary is coming up, I get notified as their manager. We do some, fun post and really recognize our employees in ways that wasn't really happening before, but now they feel they're more in it and a part of it.
Yeah, I'm looking at the wall behind you,
Oh,
because I
Yeah.
see we give our people credit. I see innovation. I think disruption and trust.
Yep. And then a couple on the other side. So the CRE part of it is collaboration, responsibility, and empowerment.
Oh, I get it. We give our people
Credit, get our employees credit. Funny, huh?
How did you create your values?
So I wasn't a part of that creation. I inherited the values, but I'd say that, something that we've done is to really bring those more to life. And I think that's something that is important in any organization, that I've been a part of. MediaCom, we have these, four, great one word values, but what did that mean? Right. So how do you really bring those to life? And I think that's something that, again, is fun, as part of the people team, and also then getting our employees involved in that as well. So doing, little vignettes or videos or whatever, and get them, kind of a part of, what are we going to focus on this month?
Oh, so do you take a value each month and focus, or?
We have been doing like one every 2 months, but yes. Yeah.
Got it. So this has been a particularly challenging couple of years for folks in the HR profession. And most people sort of talk about all they've done that they didn't think they were ever going to have to do, including being a safety officer, et cetera. What are some of the things that you see that are the most different, or that you have experienced in the last few years?
I think I've had to, I think one of the things that are different is just a lot more listening. So I'll just say I spend a lot more time actively listening, just being that ear. I think the challenge is not always having to solution everything that I've heard, right? I think oftentimes, and I know my personality is, and I think it's probably similar to some of my peers and, friends in my network, we just feel like as a chief people officer, you've got to solve it. Like it's yours to kind of put the pieces together, or whether it's a puzzle or connecting the dots. And I think one of the things that I've learned, and part of it is about myself, is that I don't necessarily have to fix everything. And that I do need to understand. If I'm listening to it, I will process it and understand it, and often ask if there's something that this person needs from me to help them with, right? Or, just it's kind of working, what do you want me to do? Just hang and be empathetic, right? Or is this something that's really going to impact the organization or your team, or, whatever the situation is. So it's also taken a lot of patience on my part. Because I think that my career, and I'm a driver, just as, personality type. And I think, one of the skills early I learned at Goldman was being empathetic, and empathy was important. And so I think that's been really put to the test. Because now I don't know, is this really happening? Did someone really go through this? And I think that, I also think that there's been a lot of some bad behavior that we've seen over since the pandemic, just because people weren't working in the same way. And
what do you mean by that?
I think that I think some of the things I've seen, and not just necessarily here, is people they're not listening, so they're talking over. And it's like, how do I get underneath that as a situation? Because if we're in this Zoom world, I don't know, sometimes you're multitasking, so you're not even paying attention, right? And now that we're in person, I think it's because we're hybrid, But mostly, I mean, I'll say I'm pretty much here every day just because I like being around our team, and working with everyone. But I think the part is just, helping everyone just, kind of listen.
So what is your hybrid or work policy, or how do you
Yeah,
handle?
so we call it, no, I think we call it hybrid. I'd say it's like 3 days a week. We kind of started it as it was much less than that. And I think then we went to kind of 50%. And I'd say most everybody, again, is here 3 days a week. And we do have like seamless Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but that doesn't necessarily mean that nobody's here on Tuesday and Thursday. I mean, the teams, like the product team actually put a calendar together for themselves so they could figure out, who was going to be in, and just so that they knew they had a presence in the office as well to just work with, a different team or whatever's going on there. So that's what it's been. I'm hoping it, hoping it stays that way because it just gives that flexibility.
Right, right. And certainly it is also, and I believe it's one of your values, it's empowering to say, we're going to figure this out on our own on how we do this and meet the business needs, right?
Yeah. And I think that's something that I've tried to, again, work with our founders on is you really need to enable our leaders or our, managers to really work with their teams and come up with their own schedule. Like I'm just not a good hall monitor. I don't think I've ever been. And I feel like that's a role that for leaders that, believe employees should be in the office, that's a mentality. And I can appreciate it, but mine is more, I want to be focused on the outcomes. So are they meeting their deadlines? Are they getting the work done? And if so, then we need to give them the opportunity to work that between their teams, right? They just, if something's amiss, then we'll figure it out, right?
Have you had any challenges where something wasn't getting done and, there was an unwillingness to sort of admit that? Have there been any challenges to your?
There always, yeah. I mean, there definitely are. And again, the conversations that I have is really focused on, okay, what's going on, right? It's more I just need to hear the situation, the problem, and kind of what led, like what was the root cause, like kind of what happened, and then let's get underneath it and let's figure out how we solve for it.
Right.
And really, we can solve for it, between, the manager and myself. But sometimes something will come over from, one of our founders, and I'm like, okay. And I'll just go meet with the manager and go, okay, let's work through this. Tell me what's really going right. And then we just, again, it all gets addressed and solved for. Sales, I think, was a bit wonky during the summer. Wonky in the sense that, maybe it was taking Fridays off. So the floor was pretty quiet on a Friday. And I'm like, oh, and it's this view, again, it's a view. Are you just taking half the day off, right? I mean, it's just, perceptions, becomes reality for some people. And worked with the sales team and said, okay, how do we address this? Should we look at, your from a production, your quota, and again, it's a monthly quota. So it's not like we're managing it day to day in that way. And so I said, let's do this. Quotas, if you've met your quota, then let's just make sure you're here Monday. Let's just make sure first you're here Monday, Wednesdays. Those are 2 days you're for sure in the office. And then during the middle of the week, if you've got your quota, work, 1 or 2 of those days from home. So far, so good. Again, it's about a month, but it was a way of, again, working with them, putting a bit of a parameter in there, just again, from an outcome perspective, that they know then where they are. I don't need to, then I don't feel like I have to manage it.
Right.
By the way, I feel like I manage sales anyway. So.
And what percent of your organization is sales?
Oh, it's actually, it's a small percent.
Yeah.
Yeah. 10%. Small.
Would it mostly be customer service and product?
I'd say the largest is actually our underwriting team here in the States is the largest. And then we've got and then product marketing. Yeah.
So our listeners are mostly HR folks and developing in their career. What do you think is the most important attribute for an HR person to have in today's world and today's economy, and how do you develop that?
Yeah, that I think it's really important because I end up mentoring many many individuals, or that either worked with me in the past or come across me in a network. And I'd say what I tell them, and I just, maybe because I followed this in my own career, is I think the more you understand the business that you're in, you really do take to heart the interconnectivity of how you make money. How do you drive revenue? How does your business make money? And I have focused primarily on, we can say professional services. I haven't worked in manufacturing, so I don't know, that piece of the world at all. But I'd say it's focused then on your people to enable or unlock that growth and that revenue growth. And so I don't get hung up on, I definitely am extremely compliant from that perspective. But otherwise, I feel like there's bookends on how you work, how our people work, how, your performance management process. Many of mine initially in organizations have been like a Word document, or a Google sheet when that came along, versus real, tools, because the organizations really weren't ready for that.
Mm.
And so, I think the other, recommendation is really understand where your organization is, and don't force your experience on that organization. You really have to meet them. It's just like learning, right? You have to meet your learners where they are. So you have to meet the leadership, and you have to meet that organization where they are. And then, it's a marathon. It's kind of like, day by day, you can introduce something new or a different quarter. I think that's very important to really spend the time working with them. And it doesn't mean that you're slow. It just means, the organization is not going to, there's not going to be an organ reject, right? It's going to be, you're really going to be able to move that needle for them and provide, better, right, experiences for people and engaged employees. And they'll find value. They won't be saying, what is going on, right, in HR?
Right. Absolutely. HR has certainly come a long way. And in the past, in our experiences working in organizations where you were sort of just there to make sure problems didn't happen and make sure people got paid and you didn't get sued.
No. And to me, those are it's kind of like, that's the table stakes. If you set the table, all of that has to get done, right? Yep. If anything goes out of whack, and things happen, and you just kind of keep that still in check. It's really then how are you adding value? Right. And how do what's that, what's that impression you're leaving with that employee? And it really, it's funny, this week I've had 2 different employees reach out that I worked with over 10 years ago, different companies, because they were going through something in their career and just wanted to talk through it. And it was so interesting because I'm like, how did they remember me? Right? What was it? And I don't ask this question, but the fact is, that it does give me, it makes me feel good about whatever impact I had in that organization. Somebody there felt good enough or, safe enough to like come forward, kind of call me years later and say, hey, do you have a few minutes to talk to me? And so to me, that there's nothing more important than that. I always think I always represent the company, right? There's always this outlook again with employees, but I think true to heart is if you really want the culture that that you're building to be that culture, you have to really invest in your talent and your people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any last thoughts that you want to share or sort of send people away with thinking about, the space of talent.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I'd say is don't get stuck in your swim lane.
Mm.
Don't just look at it as, I've got, I'm a doctor and this is my lane. I think that as a true people leader, human capital leader, you have the opportunity to really, again, learn the business and work with your broader leadership team to solve for and kind of unlock that, the opportunities that and those challenges. Because again, your peers want to work with you. It's just, you have to, open up that and be really willing to some of that is I schedule some meetings, for our, not just our leadership team, but on a particular product thing, because I am passionate about it. And I actually then I'll know what's going on. I also will know more,
right?
So that I'll be learning so that I can work with our employees who are impacted, or going to have something to do something in their job.
Absolutely.
So I think that piece of it is really, for me, what has enabled me to continue to love and do what I do. Is because I haven't just restricted myself to a particular confined role. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Debbie, I appreciate your insights, and your passion comes clear through on the Zoom meeting. And thank you so much for your time and sharing with us, the journey of your organization through some pretty rapid growth and your role in that. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you for listening. We hope you got a ton of value out of this episode.
Before we go, we want to thank the sponsor of our show, the Mid-Atlantic Employers Association, more commonly referred to as MEA. MEA provides human resources services to hundreds of businesses across numerous industries every day, bridging gaps that restrain innovation and growth.
If you need support around people issues, reach out to meainfo.org. Better people, better outcomes.